Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another edition of our webinar series, Inside Immigration. Today, we're joined by panelists Ellie Slavens and Jonathan Green. Please feel free to ask any questions via the pop-up text bar on the right side of your screen, and we'll do our very best to address them at the end. If the panelists do not get to your question, you can contact them through the information provided on screen now. And with that being said, I'll hand things over to our panelists.
Thank you very much, Danielle. I hope everyone's having a good day. Like Danielle mentioned, my name is Jonathan Green. I'm an associate lawyer at the firm, and I'm joined by my colleague Ellie Slavens, who's the practice director of our LMIA group and a partner as well at the firm. And we're here to provide a little overview of some of the updates with respect to Canadian immigration in the last month. It's overall been a pretty quiet month, but we wanted to go over some key points that people may be interested in. I think of particular interest will be the impact on processing or just generally India and Canada relations right now, if there is an effect on immigration, everything like that. But I'll go ahead and start with some updates with Express Entry. So there have been a couple draws for Express Entry in the past month. The most recent draw was yesterday, which was a non-program specified draw with a CRS score cutoff of 504 points for 3,000 applicants. So a pretty high cutoff, a dip from what we've seen in the last little bit for Express Entry draws where no program was specified, but still a relatively high score. So candidates that may have been successful in being invited to apply under this program would have likely had 1 or 2 Canadian degrees, likely master's degrees, and considerable work experience in Canada, if not with the support of a labor market impact assessment-based work permit. So it's the continuation of a trend we've seen in the past year or so where draws have been quite competitive, especially when programs aren't specified, and applicants tend to have strong language skills and are towards the top of the Express Entry pool. Beyond that, we've seen a couple of more recent category-based invitations, which follows from what the immigration minister towards the beginning of the year highlighted towards the goals for permanent residency in Canada. So recently there was a transport occupations draw that was exactly a week ago today, where 1,000 individuals working in the transport industry, so a range of different jobs, like transport truck drivers, railway controllers, deck officers, managers in transportations, air pilots, occupations like that were selected. The invitations that were issued were for 1,000 individuals, and the CRS score was quite lower than what the non-specified program was at 435. There have been some other draws in the last little bit. The more recent no program specified draw was significantly lower than the one before that, which was at 531 points. So hopefully a good sign that the point scores are going down. By no means a guarantee, but hopefully that's the case. And we've also seen some other draws. So draws in the trades for individuals with French language proficiency, as well as draws in STEM occupations and healthcare occupations. So those are the types of rules that we've seen as of late. It doesn't mean that the government is precluded from selecting a different group of occupations. It doesn't mean that the government cannot amend the NOC codes or the National Occupational Classifications, the job roles that they have under transport occupations or trade occupations or anything like that. But it is a good sign, and we expect, hopefully, that the government will continue to have draws like these in the next little bit. In terms of these category-based occupations, or invitations rather, the majority of them have been individuals with French language proficiency. Those are the more common ones. Those draws are happening approximately every month, and it's for the largest group of individuals. So typically from 2,000 to 4,000 invitations to apply are sent out. But that's not to say with increased attention to healthcare occupations, STEM occupations, that those draws will not be carried forward. It is hard to predict exactly when these occupations will happen. We can only rely on what we've seen in the past, but all are good signs and interesting signs that the government is focusing on more occupation-specific draws, and we expect that to carry on for the rest of the year with additional non-program specified draws with high CRS scores. So that's really the state of express entry at this time, and we expect there to be a couple more draws for any of these occupations, as well as the non-specified draws into the future.
Thanks, Jonathan. Okay, so I'll move on to our next topic, which is the parental and grandparent sponsorship announcement. So given that Canada has a very large inventory of interest to sponsor applicants, where people have put in an interest to sponsor form, they've made an announcement that they're going to draw from that pool of interest to sponsor forms. So between October 10th and 23rd, they're intending to send 24,200 invitations to the people who have expressed an interest to sponsor and are in that pool. And their aim is to have about 15,000 complete applications submitted, because of those invitations, not everyone will proceed with making their application. And that would be putting forward first a sponsorship application and subsequently a permanent residence application for their parents or grandparents, which would also involve the necessary undertaking for the person once they are going to be part of the sponsored category. So, sorry, the agenda is, yeah. So there will not be any new intake, it'll be from the inventory. Which next we have the India-Canada relations. So we've been getting a lot of questions from our clients lately. You know, is my work permit application, I'm an Indian national, I'm abroad, is my work permit application processing time going to be impacted? Should I be concerned? I'm an Indian national in the US. You know, is Canada going to be prejudicing me with my application or not reviewing my application, or is there going to be some impact or delay? And the answer, as far as we're aware at this moment, is no, there should not be any impact. For the most part, the work permit applications of Indian nationals who are abroad and in India, many of those applications are actually processed at a case processing center in Canada. So those are Canadian officers making the decisions. For example, under the global talent stream, those are sort of streamlined and processed in Canada. And where they need, you know, the local office to engage with expertise or something, the application could be referred and jointly decided with the visa office in India. But you know, processing is expected to continue under the same service standards, where, you know, you can look up the published statistics where 80% of applications have been processed, and that's sort of what the government uses for their processing times published standards. So I believe in India right now it's about 8 or 9 weeks. I'll have to double check, but we don't anticipate that that would change very much. And, you know, similarly in the US, I think it's around 5 weeks right now. It could even have gone down to 3. So, you know, regardless of nationality, if you're in the US as an Indian national filing a work permit application, your application would be looked at by the visa office in New York, Consulate General of Canada. It would be filed online, and it would be picked up and processed under the normal course of processing for applications for people sitting in the United States waiting to apply for a work permit. And we don't anticipate any impacts there, despite the possibility that there may be, you know, decreased diplomatic presence of Canadians just for security reasons at the visa offices in India. So, yeah, unfortunately, despite the situation and, you know, that's happening right now, we don't anticipate a slowdown in processing for Indian nationals, whether they be abroad within Canada or in India or in the US or elsewhere. So, Jonathan, did you want to add anything to that at all, or?
No, I mean, I think that was well said. It's tough to say what the future will hold. My sense and my guess is that it likely won't impact processing for work permits, study permits, visitor visas, anything like that. But we will have to wait and see exactly what happens.
If we do notice some delayed processing or above, you know, processing delays beyond the norm, because again, the averages that are posted are, you know, 80% of applications. So we do sometimes have, you know, applicants asking us, you know, why is my application taking longer? it's been more than 8 weeks and my application's filed in India and, you know, I haven't heard. And so we'll send a follow-up on those types of applications, but generally we hear back, you know, with a passport request shortly thereafter. And it's just that the statistics that are published are really meant to be a guideline. They're not every single case, you know, they're just based on the bulk of the applications of that type filed and processed by that particular processing center or office that's responsible.
Yep, I agree. So lastly, what I would add is there's been some news specifically with respect to the Provincial Nominee Program in Saskatchewan related to country-specific draws that have been made. It's been in a couple different news sources, and they've faced a little bit of criticism for that. The Saskatchewan government has detailed that they are having country-specific draws within certain occupations. So most of them are within construction roles, painters, crane operators, roles like that. And the hope is that they can increase the number of candidates who remain in Saskatchewan beyond the issuance of permanent residency. They had released some statistics that show that a large portion of permanent residents do not retain their residency in the province of Saskatchewan. So they're hoping that by issuing nomination certificates to individuals from a specific set of countries that are more likely to stay, they can maintain the benefits of immigration. So it's a range of different countries. The countries include Poland, Czechia, Germany, Lithuania, India, Ireland, and I think Slovakia is the last one. So a range of different countries, but the hope is that they can increase the number of immigrants that stay long-term in the country, as well as in roles that are needed. So technologist positions, technician roles, and like I mentioned, a lot of them are within the construction space. So, you know, each provincial nominee program constantly changes. The Saskatchewan program particularly may be of interest to individuals from those countries in those types of roles. But we'd encourage you, if there are any further questions or interest with any province or territory in Canada, to reach out to our office to get a more formal permanent residency assessment. If there's interest in working temporarily in Canada, reaching out to our office for that. So, I mean, those are the basic updates for immigration this past month. There hasn't been a lot of news, new programs, anything like that. I'm not sure, Ellie, if you have anything else to add, or we're welcome to.
The only thing I would say is that we're getting a lot of recent questions lately about the caring for children pathway, caring for the elderly pathway. So those PR streams that have quotas will be reopening in the new year. And if you have an interest or you're looking to make an application under that category, it's best to reach out to our office sooner rather than later, because we have to prepare to try and submit applications right at the beginning of the year. And so that's just one thing that we've sort of been talking about internally as that category will reopen for the new year.
Yep. And then those applications, depending on the stream, some of them can fill up the same day they open on January 1st. So it is really important, if that's of interest to anyone on the call or anyone's family or friends, to reach out early so that we can help prepare those applications in anticipation for, you know, we expect that on the same day it may fill up depending on the quota. Great. Okay. I'm not sure if anyone who's attending has any specific questions or concerns about anything we've mentioned. We're more than happy to answer some of those questions.
So I don't see any questions coming in. So I think that's it. But thank you everyone for attending today's webinar, and a special thanks to Ellie and Jonathan for sharing their expert knowledge. If you would like to discuss today's topics in more detail, please reach out and book a consultation. Details can be found on the screen now. I also encourage everyone to sign up for our alerts and follow us on social media to keep up to date with the latest developments inside Canadian immigration. Thanks again, everyone, and have a good afternoon.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Take care.